Hey y'all, welcome to the Draper Bunch Adventures. My name is Carol. I'm so glad you've joined us today. If you're new here, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel. And if you're coming back for a repeat visit, give us a big thumbs up and let us know you were here. Today we're going to do the last in the series of curriculum videos talking about what we've used for curriculum in our homeschool. And today we're specifically focusing on a K-1 type curriculum for our daughter Emma. She is 7. She turned 7 in November. So by public school standards, she would have been in first grade this year. But let's talk about that for a minute, because I've mentioned it in a couple of my other videos and I told you that I would address it later. So let's address it right now. The thing about the public school standards is that they have changed significantly for early elementary students in the last probably 10 years or so, maybe 15 years. They've changed quite a bit. So when I started teaching, probably over 20 years ago now, when I started teaching in a classroom, I taught first grade. I taught first grade for many, many years. Beyond the other things that I did, that was the bulk of my career I spent teaching first grade. When I started teaching first grade, the standard at that time was that kindergarten kids would go to kindergarten. Many kindergartens were half day. They would play, they would learn their letters, learn some numbers, and play outside, and maybe have a nap time if they were a full day especially. So that was kind of the standard. And then when the kids got to first grade, they oftentimes didn't remember a lot of those things that they had learned in kindergarten. And we would kind of start fresh with a review, and they would relearn kind of their letters and sounds, and we would really just start very basic. And some kids would come into first grade already knowing how to read, but those were typically the minority of students, and the majority of students would kind of just be at that readiness level, sort of ready to start learning how to read. So that has changed through the years, and most public schools now, even when I stopped teaching 5 years ago, there's such a big push for academics that in preschool they're teaching kids letters and letter sounds. In kindergarten they want them already reading, and by the time they get to first grade, they're just, they're expecting a lot of kids in the language arts area specifically. Really in all areas, but the language arts is a more abstract and tends to be a little bit more difficult for kids. And so the issue with that is that not all kids are ready to do the same thing at the same time. So some kids are ready to read when they're 5, and if they're interested and they want to do that, then I think it's great to have them pursue whatever their interests are academically. However, some kids are not ready, and that's okay. They're not necessarily built to be ready to do that when they're 5, and some are not ready even when they're 6, and it takes more time. So a lot of times in first grade, I dealt with frustrated parents who felt like their kids were behind because they weren't reading yet. And I used to reassure them that that was okay, because maybe they just weren't ready yet, and it didn't mean that anything was wrong, because people often tend to think something's wrong. Their child maybe has a learning disability, or, something else is wrong. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong. If you really look at valid, reliable research about teaching children how to read, it is developmentally appropriate for children to begin reading between ages 5 and 8. Not become proficient readers, but begin reading. So I give you all this background to say to you that I took that approach with our youngest daughter because she is the baby of the family. She wasn't ready when by standard she should necessarily, by what the school would expect her to be, ready to do all those things. So what I will preface with before I start into what we have done this year is that last year I was going full bore trying to teach her how to read, trying to make sure that she knew how to read for first grade and all of that. And what I realized was that she was getting very frustrated, and I was getting very frustrated, and I was forgetting all that I knew as a teacher. And I was not only doing that, but I was passing off my mom instincts of, wait a minute, why am I pushing her? This is why I homeschool, so that I don't have to do that. And she's clearly not ready yet. So we backed down and spent the rest of the year just trying to learn letters, trying to learn numbers, learning some letter sounds, and just kind of doing what we could. And we set a cutoff point and we stopped. And we said, you know what? We'll just pick it up again next year and we'll go. Because I know, based on my experience and watching her, that she doesn't have a learning problem, and she'll just get there when she's ready. So I had to kind of coach myself a little bit into backing off and not causing her to be frustrated and not being frustrated myself. So let me encourage you in that way. If you're getting ready to teach one of your children how to read, or you're in the midst of trying to, please be encouraged that they have plenty of time to learn to do that. So if they're not learning it when you think they should learn it, just back off a little bit. Give them a little bit of room. The most important thing you can do for your young children is read to them every day. That's the most important thing. It's a significant factor in them learning how to read, and just keep exposing them. They'll get there. They'll get there. So when we started this year with Emma, she knew some of her numbers but couldn't quite recognize all of them, and she knew some other basic kind of kindergarten skills, and she knew some of the alphabet and some of the letter sounds, but she did not know them all. So that's a reference point to show you where we started. And now I'm going to talk about kind of what I've done with her. I do have some notes here with me because I didn't want to forget anything important for any other parents. I vlog all of these things in the hopes that it will help someone else. So it is my hope that someone watching this will either be encouraged, be reassured, get some ideas about what they can do with their child, in whatever way. I hope that this will somehow help you. Maybe it'll help you make decisions about what to do for your own child next year. But that's the reason that I do this, is because I'm hoping that it will be helpful to someone. So I do have some notes, so forgive me if I look at my notes. I don't want to forget anything today. Hers is a little bit more cumbersome because there are a lot more pieces. I did a lot more piecing together and less of we're just going to get all of this out of one, company kind of thing. So I'm going to start with the easiest thing, which is the kind of science and social studies avenue. If you watched my video about my 3rd grader Ella, we do all those things together. So for science particularly, we have some Magic School Bus Young Explorers kits that we ordered and that we use with them, and they do science together, and that way they're great kits. If you did not see my 3rd grade curriculum video, I'll leave a link to it down below. I highly recommend going and watching it, because all the things I'm talking about, I elaborate on in that video, and I also leave links to buy all those things in the video, or to look at them if you would like to look at them. I'll do the same today. I'll try to leave links for everything that I can for you, so that you can go and look at it for yourself if you would like, if you're interested. So we use the Magic School Bus kits. We use Easy Peasy Online Homeschool, which is allinoneHomeschool.com for science, particularly because it has short lessons that just kind of exposes them to the content of science and does fun videos and activities, excuse me, online for those things. So we use those 2 things particularly for science. We do have a subscription to something called Brain Pop Junior, which we use for science and social studies. They have great videos that are animated with a robot and a little girl that teach different concepts. So we have a subscription to that. And then for history, social studies, we have used a Knotgrass curriculum called Our Star-Spangled Story. I think that's the correct name of it. Again, it's in the 3rd grade video, but it's an early elementary curriculum that I used with both girls. They each had their own separate workbook, but we bought one set of books to use with them, and we will use it again next year. We didn't finish it this year. We'll finish it next year and probably just start it over again, just so that they'll have more than one exposure to it, because some of the concepts in history and science can be a little bit more abstract and difficult for them to understand. So double exposure certainly doesn't hurt. So those are kind of the things that we use for those subjects. One of the things I particularly like to do at the early elementary levels is I do read alouds every day. I read aloud. You can see my shelf of books back here, and they're organized by categories. If you haven't seen my homeschool room tour, make sure you go and watch that, because I explain how I have my books organized here. But I pull books that are related to whatever we're learning. Some nonfiction, some have some fiction in them and whatever, but like a lot of math concepts and science concepts, I have a lot of good kid nonfiction books that help the kids understand those concepts better. And so a lot of times I will pull out those nonfiction children's books and use those as read alouds to help continue to expose them to the content and help them internalize it a little bit better. I stated in my other video that mastery is not the goal with science and social studies in elementary aged kids. It's really just exposure and interest. So we pursue their interests. We have some materials like the ones I've talked about that we use for exposure in those subject areas, but I don't give them tests or expect any mastery, particularly in those areas, because they'll see it again. They'll be exposed to it again and again throughout their school years. And when they get older, they'll have a background knowledge to build on. So those are the things that we use for science and social studies. Now let's talk about math. So one of the things that I said is that she kind of had a number sense when we started the school year. And I started looking at curriculums that I wanted to use for her for math, and I settled on the good and the beautiful. So I am going to actually do an entire review video because we bought curriculum for several grade levels and several subjects for the good and the beautiful. We ended up not using any of them except the math for Emma. So I will do a whole review video and show you that more pieces of that curriculum for the other ages at some other time. But I started off using the good and the beautiful for Emma. I read what the information they had on their website and determined that the K book was going to be the best place for her to start, which is why I kind of call this like a K1 sort of curriculum. Just really trying to be flexible and start where she needed to start to get her where she needed to be, and not necessarily worry about what grade level it's labeled with. Because again, a lot of the standards that are being taught in kindergarten are really things that kind of ought to be taught in first grade that are more difficult and abstract. So we began our year in the Good and the Beautiful kindergarten and used a majority of it. We were able to go through it relatively quickly. I will say I like this, the Good and the Beautiful kindergarten math curriculum. It is very well laid out. It is very user-friendly. It's very much an open and go sort of curriculum. So we used the course book, which has the teacher's information in it, and it has the kids' work information in it. So here's an example. It has a lesson, you can see, and then on the side over here, it kind of gives some instruction of things to do, and then it gives the lesson in here. And I know you can't see it on the camera, but it does tell you, it says explicitly what the teacher needs to do and what to kind of ask the kids. It's almost sort of scripted. And so they go through a lesson, they give activities, they give a student worksheet, and they give a bonus independent activity for the kids to do, which looks, you know, a lot of times is a worksheet like this. This is one that was kind of early on. So it does give, independent activities for them to do. When it calls for manipulatives in the math program, here's another example of kind of the worksheet. When it calls for manipulatives in the program, it does come with a box of manipulatives. And inside that box, it has all sorts of resources like handwriting cards where they can use a dry erase marker and practice writing their numbers when they're doing that early on. Bear with me, you guys. There's a lot of stuff here. And it comes with this kit math activity box. And inside the box are quite a lot of materials like pattern block pieces and garden plant manipulatives, which are like counters that they use that have different things on them. Let me get myself out of the picture so it'll focus. It has place value chart, and all of this stuff is laminated in plastic, so it's very durable, very easy to use with like a dry erase marker and a wipe off. It comes with, dice, like everything that you need to do the activities it has in here. I will tell you that I think when I ordered this kit last summer, it was just coming out. There were a few things that some of the lessons would say go into your kit and get X, Y, or Z. and I ended up not having those items in my kit. And I really did not look ahead because it was kind of all-inclusive, kind of open and go, and I wasn't expecting that to happen. So one of the things I would say to you if you're going to order this is check and make sure you have all the materials when you get it. I'm sure it was just a fluke on my part because I was one of the early ones. The majority of things were in here, but there were a few things that were missing. And by the time I realized they were missing, I was at that lesson and needed it. So I just kind of created whatever it was, or drew it on a dry erase board, or I just kind of was flexible and made do with whatever it was. It wasn't anything significant that I couldn't just recreate kind of on the split second. But I enjoyed the kit because it was very well laid out and it was easy to use. The whole program was really easy to use, and I like the way they introduced the concepts and the way they teach them. It really helped her gain a good sense of numbers. One of the things that I forgot to say is that we actually start every day with calendar math activities, which I have on a wall over here. You've probably seen it in some of my other videos. If you saw my homeschool room tour, it is in that as well. Again, definitely go watch that if you haven't seen it. It will help you understand better what I'm talking about. So we start every day with the calendar math activities. This is something that I did in the classroom that I kind of brought home with me because I feel like it gives them an opportunity to be exposed to several math concepts at once, and they're practicing them every single day. It really helps them internalize and understand some of those more abstract concepts. So some of the things we do is we talk about weather, seasons, months, days of the week. We graph weather, so we get graphing as well in that. We do counting the days, and we have a place value chart that we put straws in, and we bundle, and we make this big ordeal when we move from the ones place to the tens place, and the tens place to the hundreds place. So every day they're getting exposure to place value, counting. You can see the number chart behind me where we practice all different types of skip counting. And then of course they learn about time. I have a clock that I could show you that has, let me show you. I have this clock that I ordered off of Amazon that that I use, and we start kind of early on just exposing them to the clock and trying to help them understand the concepts of time as it relates to being able to tell time, and just really taking it slow and introducing a little bit at a time and adding on so that they can master the concepts. And so this really helps because we work on so many concepts during that calendar math time, and the calendar math time probably takes 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of the year when we kind of started, and as we sort of get in a groove, it takes, 10 minutes a day, 10 to 15 minutes a day. So we go over the date and the days of the week, and it gives them a sense of ownership about what's going on during the week and what's happening, because we keep events on the calendar. And we do introduce money. So like when we add straws to the place value, we'll add a penny, and when the penny gets to 5, we bundle it and make it a nickel. And when when we have more than one nickel, we bundle and make a dime. So it helps cover a lot of math concepts in one fell swoop, and because they're seeing it over and over again every day, they internalize it pretty quickly, and it really just helps teach concepts that you then are able to kind of skip when you get to them in the curriculum. So for example, telling time, by the time we got to that in the curriculums we were using, Emma already knew how to tell time to the hour and half hour, which was all she needed to learn at that point. So we just skip that part and we're able to move on to the next thing. So I enjoy that calendar math time. They like it because it's hands-on, and they get to manipulate the pieces and move it, and they get to color the graph. And so it really is kind of a fun thing for them to do. It's interactive, and they learn a lot from it. So as we moved on through the Good and the Beautiful kindergarten curriculum, what I realized was it was getting a little bit too easy for her. And so we switched over from that to the first grade Beka math curriculum. I have a lot of the Beka stuff just because I used it with our daughter who is now in 3rd grade. I used it with her, or for her early elementary years. But in Emma's case, I really just bought the workbook from Beka because I had some of the other pieces already. I bought the workbook text. I didn't even pull out the teacher's edition or anything. I just went in and started looking through what was being covered, and we just started working through the workbook. And if we got to something that was new that she didn't know how to do, then I would stop and make a lesson out of that. So it's helped her be able to kind of catch up a little bit, if you will, because she got a lot out of between the calendar math and the good and the beautiful. She was able to really move forward pretty quickly in the math. So we went ahead and moved on to the first grade math, and now she is learning addition and subtraction facts. She knows time to the hour and a half hour. She's counting money. She's able to do place value to the hundreds place. So just lots of concepts that we're able to kind of be covered collectively at once. And so now we're just advancing on those concepts. We have another week or so of school left, so we're just kind of advancing on the concepts that she's learned and just working through the book. And then when we hit something new in the book, then I stop and make that particular skill a lesson for the day, and I just teach it to her in my own way and in a way that I think she'll understand based on her learning style, and then we just move on. It also comes, you can also get with that Beka first grade math, it gives tests and speed drills book, which I did buy, though I do not time her on the speed drills because I feel like they're too young to do that. I do give her the little speed drills every day and have her complete them, because really it's just practicing addition and basic addition and subtraction facts over and over again. And the nice thing about doing it, even when you're not timing them, is because they're doing they're doing the same things every single day, they memorize it and they don't even realize that they're doing it. So it's nice to do that. Some of the tests I'll pull out and give, again, I use my discretion. A lot of people do not like a Beka because they say there is a lot of busy work in a Beka. And that is true. There are a lot of worksheets, there are a lot of materials that go along with a Beka, and it can be a little confusing and a little overwhelming. But we do completely flex teaching in our household, so we pull out what we feel is valuable for learning. I have them do what's valuable for learning, and we skip anything we don't feel like is valuable or anything they don't need to do. If a child has already mastered something and they've proven it by being able to successfully complete that skill over and over and over again, there's no reason to continue making them do it. So we just take each day as it comes, and we look at what's there in a Beka. And even on a single worksheet, sometimes I'll cross out sections and say, we're not doing this section today, we're just going to do this section, and this section. So use your discretion, use what you know about your child, and complete what you feel is valuable. Don't complete things that you don't think are valuable. I mean, this is not a regular schoolroom where we need to give busy work. My kids don't need busy work. Once they do what they need to do for the day, they can be done and go off to other things that are important to them. So I choose what's valuable to their learning, what I think is going to help them master the skills. Those are the things we do, and then we don't do the rest. So I realize this video has already gotten long, so I'm going to try to kind of speed up a little bit. I try to be thorough because I feel like sometimes when we're trying to figure out these things on our own, if we're not sure about something, it's not clear. But let's go ahead and move into language arts. So we started our year with Good and the Beautiful for K-Math with her. I highly recommend, obviously, always looking at a curriculum and looking at what they're covering in that curriculum and whether or not it's going to meet your needs before you make a decision about that. And then we moved into the Beka Math, kind of a modified version of it, my own version of it. So for language arts is a little bit more tricky because I do not use just one thing. I kind of use a combination of things in teaching language arts, especially at the early age, because you're really teaching them how to read. So I actually use something called guided reading strategies, which is something that I learned in the classroom, teaching kids how to read. I use a combination of guided reading strategies and phonics, because some kids need both to learn how to read. Most kids have difficulty learning strictly from one thing or the other. Some kids just do it naturally, and some kids have a little bit more trouble. So I use a combination of those two things. Guided reading introduces strategies. Again, if you didn't watch my homeschool tour, I talked about that a little bit in the tour where I showed the posters and the friends that introduced the strategies. But it introduces a set of strategies to help kids when they get stuck in an unknown word, on an unknown word when they're reading. It gives them strategies like, did you look at the picture? Did you say the first sound of the word you're not sure about? Did you try what makes sense? Did you reread? So there's a whole set of strategies, and there's a method to how I teach those. I teach them, I model them, we practice them together. Then I coach them when they're reading on using the strategies. Did you try your strategies? Did you try and lion? He says you should go back and reread. So there's a whole kind of method that goes into that, and I use that in a combination with phonics. If you're interested in hearing the specificities of how to use guided reading strategies with kids, if you will leave a comment down below, then I'll be happy to make a series of videos about that. It would probably have to be a series. I don't think I could do it in one video. One of the things I would like to do maybe next year is do some actual live teaching videos for you if you're interested, so that you can kind of see how I implement these things with the children. So I used a combination of that, which is just things that I had from my teaching days, and then I combined that with using Bob books. Bob books work really well. This is the first level. It's level set 1, the beginning readers. Bob books work really well in combination with learning some phonics and using the guided reading strategies. It's a great way for the kids to practice guided reading strategies. Don't be afraid to let them read the same book over and over again. Even if you think they have it memorized, it still is practice. It still is exposure to words, and that's what's most important. So we bought Bob books. We use those to practice our guided reading strategies. And then I use a very loose version of a Beka for teaching the phonics portion. I like the way a Beka introduces phonics. I think it's very solid. It's a great way to teach kids how to read. I think regardless of the child's learning style, that a Beka, it does a really, really good job in teaching and introducing phonics. There is a multitude of materials that come with the Beka kindergarten. I use the kindergarten because to me their kindergarten is a combo of kindergarten, first grade. They go way advanced into the phonics in the kindergarten program, and I think that the kindergarten program is really more like a K1 program in my opinion. So there's a whole plethora of materials that come. I mean, there are letter cards that you can get, and they have, you know, picture cues on the back that you use when you're introducing the letters. They're very methodical in how they introduce the different phonetic sounds, and meaning that the order that they're in, they introduce a lot of the short vowels first and then go into the consonants, and they have cards for each one, and then catchy rhymes like M says as in milk. M says and they practice that over and over again, and they learn the majority of that before, you know, they learn a good bit of that and then start sounding out words, and then they learn how to blend just the first 2 letters together, you know, a consonant and a short vowel, and there's a box of blend cards. I only have just a few out sample for you to show you. They have a blend word book, and this book has where you have them go in and practice the different blends, which helps them be able to read through words a little bit quickly when they're trying to sound them out. One of the things that is really important in teaching kids to sound out words is to not have them go b, a, t, because it's very difficult for them to connect that in their mind. I always tell Emma, because she likes to sing, that it's kind of like singing, and it's called blending because they have to blend together. So you have them do the first 2 sounds, b, a, and then have them put that together, ba, t, and have them add the last sound. So that's really the best method for learning to blend phonics together for words. So they have all of those things, and then when you get a little bit more advanced in the curriculum and they've learned a little bit more, they have a lot of little readers that go with it. They have I Learn to Read, and then there's another set after this. I didn't bring them over here with me, but these just have them practice individual words, and it does give them picture clues in the beginning, but then it weans them off the picture clues later and has them doing actual little stories. So so it does, you know, it advances, and it advances at a nice pace. It's not too fast, but it's fast enough they can get it. It comes with different types of charts. I do buy the workbook that goes with it, letters and sounds. You can buy it bound or unbound. I bought it unbound because I do keep binders for my kids, and so it's just easier to hole punch it and stick it in the binder when it's unbound. This just has them practice the phonics stuff that they learn every day. There's not, in the beginning, there's not a worksheet every day. And again, that's one of those things where I pick and choose what's most important and have them do what I think is valuable to reinforcing their learning. I do buy the handwriting one. I start manuscript. Beka encourages cursive early on, but I do manuscript for the first couple of years, and then in 2nd grade I start introducing cursive. So I do teach my kids to write cursive. Another thing that I use for practicing those strategies and phonetics together is leveled books from Reading A to Z. Again, that is a subscription that you do have to pay for, where you can print off books, and it has really great ways to practice, especially those guided reading strategies that has great pictures and all that. That's something we chose to do. It can be a little pricey, but it was something we chose to do just to help give her something to read besides just Bob books. I do advise that if you're going to do the Beka K5, that you get the teacher's manual. I do not, it's all inclusive of all subjects, and so I do not use everything. I only do the phonics portion of it and the reading portion of it. I don't do the rest of it. The handwriting, I just teach. As we learn the letter, we learn how to write the letter. There's nothing complex about that. And they just practice it. And some of them are going to be better at writing than others. And you just have them keep practice. I just have her practice a little bit every day. Again, not to frustration. I try not to nitpick her about handwriting. And her handwriting has gotten significantly better over the course of the year. Just a little practice every day is good for that. So it does break it up in the teacher's manual. And it tells you exactly what to say and exactly what to do. I really think it's very thorough. I like it a lot. It tells you what worksheet pages to complete. And so I highly recommend Beka if you want to teach phonics. There are a lot of options out there for teaching phonics. I have tried several of them. I do not like them as much as I like this one. I think this one is very efficient in teaching the phonics. So I'll just show you a couple of examples. Here's a writing worksheet from the Writing with Phonics. You can see her little Miss Emma's handwriting has gotten a lot better. That one was from later in the year. Let me see if I can find you one from earlier in the year to show you. If I can find one. I'll try to do it quickly. So here's one from earlier in the year from her. You can see. Her writing wasn't nearly as good. She's gotten a lot better. So just a little practice every day will do with that. I promise. And then here's as an example of kind of some of the phonics worksheets that go with it, where it has them read, fill in the missing letter, find the sentence that goes with the picture, that type of thing. So I do recommend the Writing with Phonics and the Letters and Sounds workbook, bound or unbound, whatever floats your boat with that. I used those things together. So I used phonics and reading with Beka, Bob books, guided reading strategies. It has worked very, very well. She went from being a child who didn't know all of her letters and sounds at the beginning of the year to now she is up to the point where she's able to read long vowel words. So that's a big progress. You learn the phonics, short vowel words, long vowel words. She's reading 4 and 5 letter words now and reading little books independently on her own. That's a big leap, folks. That's a big leap for a little kid. So she's done great. She's ready to round out her year. This summer we'll spend time obviously practicing reading over the summer. And at this point the light bulb is kind of going off for her, and I just see her continuing just to grow and grow and grow in that regard. So those are the things that I use for curriculum. I tried not to talk too fast, but I tried to talk fast enough because I know this video is already really, really long. If you have questions for me about the specificities of what I do in regards to teaching this and how I do it, please leave those in the comments below. Our email address is below. You're welcome to email me. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have all of those. We have pages on all of those. You're welcome to send me a message that way. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Like I said, my goal of these videos is to try and help someone who may need it. I think that when in the early ages, especially for the foundational blocks of learning, which are reading and math, you really have to be willing to use a combination of things. And one of the things that is important is remembering that you need to be coaching and encouraging, and one of the most important things that a child can have to be a good reader is confidence. So what we don't want to do is take their confidence away from them. We want them to feel good about what they're doing. So you be encouraged, encourage them, coach them. A waiting time when you ask them to do something is really, really important. I learned this when I was in college to become a teacher, that really when you ask a child a question, you need to give them 5 to 10 seconds to process what you've said and let them have time to think about it before they have to answer you right away. So I hope that all those tips are helpful. You know, it's just so important not to be frustrated. I am thinking about some ideas for next year. So if you have ideas of something you would like to see for next year, please leave it in the comments below. Two things I'm thinking about doing. One is doing some actual vlogs of lessons of me teaching the children. I talked about that a little bit earlier. So if that's something you would like me to do, please leave it in the comments below. Another thing I thought about doing is a live story time. So I read aloud to my kids every day. They really, really enjoy it. If you think it's something that maybe your kids might like to watch, you know, leave me a comment down below and tell me that you would like to have the live story time. I'm trying to think of some ideas other than just me talking to you. So as we're getting ready to round out our school year, I do have vlogs coming out for you this summer. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about standardized testing. We're getting ready to do that and then coming next couple of weeks because our state requires it. So I'll talk a little bit about standardized testing. The interviews with the kids, I have compiled all the questions that people have asked. If you have questions for our kids, this is your last chance to leave them below because we're getting ready to record that vlog. So that vlog will be coming to you. Our dissection kit got delayed getting here for biology. So we're going to do some vlogs of dissections that we'll be posting some as soon as we get the kit. We still don't have it yet, so we're still waiting for that. So as soon as we get the kit, we're gonna, my husband Eric is going to do those dissections with Max for biology. I'm sure the girls will want to tag along too. So we're gonna vlog that for you, so we'll have that. I'll do unboxing of curriculum and talk about what curriculum we're going to use next year as well. So those are some of the things I have for ideas this summer for homeschool to just kind of keep things moving and give ideas hopefully to others. If you have any ideas of anything you would like to see, please leave it in the comments below. I'm always open to ideas, and like I said, you're welcome to email me if you would rather do that. Give us a thumbs up and let us know you were here today, and keep watching because if you are interested, I've had several people ask me, my next Disney vlog is going to be a vlog of all of my ears and where I got them because I have quite a collection. So someone's asked me to share that, so that will be my next Disney vlog coming up. We have 3 Disney cruises scheduled over the course of the next year and a half. So we're looking forward. We have one in October, one in January, and then Eric and I are going solo without the kids next August. So look for that because I'm looking forward to trying to vlog that. I've never done something like that before, so I'm looking forward to October and trying to be able to bring that to you. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for being here. I know this was a long video. I hope it was helpful. If you have any suggestions, questions, comments, please leave them. We would love to hear from you. We'll see y'all real soon.